Oh, okay. So please let me know, Rachel, if there's any problems.
We can see
Okay,
and hear you. Thank you so
perfect. All right. Thank you. Okay. So good morning, and thank you, Rachel, for the kind introduction. I'd like to thank the organizers of the Rehab Colloquium for inviting me here today. I'd also like to recognize all of their hard work in pulling this together. It's been really challenging times, and so I'm really excited to be a part of this. So thank you very much for inviting me. I would like to take a moment to acknowledge that Durham region, where I am currently located in the Greater Toronto area, forms a part of the traditional and treaty territory of the Mississauga of Scugog Island First Nation, which is covered under the Williams Treaties. I'm thankful for the opportunity to live and work on the lands of the peoples of Mississaugas of Scugog Island First Nation. So I'm here today with you to share a little bit about my professional journey and how that has opened up some unexpected opportunities, which I've been very fortunate to have. I think that my training as an occupational therapist and my work over the past 20 years as an OT has really informed my outlook on my life and perspectives on my own growth and resilience. So I completed my undergraduate degree at Queen's back in the 90s. I was admitted into the Bachelor of Science in Occupational Therapy program from high school. And this was a really tough transition for me, partially because it was a pretty intense program from high school. And I was also pretty immature to be doing it. During that time, I took an elective during my first year, and it was actually a nursing course, and it was called Women in Health. And that was when I realized that I was really interested in women's experiences. And that prompted me to enroll to complete a Bachelor of Arts concurrently in Women's Studies. So as much as I loved my degree in Women's Studies, I decided against pursuing graduate studies in the area of Women's Studies and started working as an occupational therapist when I graduated from both of those degrees. That degree in women's studies has actually returned to a place in my current career, as the bulk of the research I do is on women's experiences. So after about 6 years of work after undergrad, at that time I was working in school health support services and child and adolescent mental health. I decided to complete my Master's of Science in Occupational Therapy in the post-professional program at Dalhousie. So life happens, and I don't want to bore you with the details of my personal life, but I really think that it would not, I really wouldn't be where I am today professionally if it weren't for various life events. During my master's degree, I had a little girl, and that's her in the left picture there, sitting with me. I was writing part of my thesis. Fast forward to January 2014, I unexpectedly and rather traumatically lost my job in a clinical leadership role at a local hospital. Then, as if fate would have it, I received an email from Dr. Heidi Cram a few weeks later. So I had previously gotten in touch with Dr. Cram, who I've actually known since undergrad. We were we started the OT program together. So I contacted Dr. Cram and asked her about her availability on taking PhD students at Queen's, as I was, trying to prepare for, down the road. I had hoped to return to school. But when Dr. Cram emailed me out of the blue, she asked if I was going to be applying that year for the PhD in rehabilitation science, as the applications were going to be due in 2 weeks. So, with nothing else sort of going on in my life, and with the support of my family, because I'd be relying on my parents to really, step up and help with childcare, I decided to apply, and fortunate for me, I got in. So one of the first big challenges I had starting my PhD was I had to learn very quickly about a population that I knew nothing about. And that was about military and veteran families in Canada. So having worked in child and adolescent and family mental health for years, as I did, I thought, how different could this be? And the answer is it's quite different. I first had to dismiss any myths and preconceptions I had about military families, which I had learned, through movies and television over the years. So for those of you who are unfamiliar with this small yet significant population, a couple of things that I had learned early on, I'll share with you. So the first thing about military families is, they're the same as all other Canadian families. They have their ups and downs, they have celebrations, they have traditions. And that was, a really important piece for me to keep in mind as I was going into this work. There are also some important distinctions in these families. So these families tend to move around a lot more than civilian Canadians, which can be challenging for accessing and ensuring continuity of healthcare and education. Military families experience a lot of absences through the process where the military family member comes and goes routinely due to deployment and training, which can be really disruptive for family members and their entire family unit. So there is also an increased risk for illness, injury, and death, which is unique to only certain professions, such as the military and public safety personnel like police, fire, corrections, and paramedics. So I am part of a first responder family. So some of these unique life experiences really spoke to me. So being fully aware of what I didn't know about military families, I started this journey to learn about their experiences, which continues to inspire the work that I do to this day. Also coming into academics from practice, I also realized that I didn't know anyone. So during conferences that I attended, I would approach people who did research I was interested in and follow up with those that I met. And not only connecting with well-established researchers, but for me, it was really important to connect with people who were in the same boat as me, so other graduate students. And many of them have continued to be close friends and colleagues, and having these relationships have been really helpful during those very long and stressful times of writing. So in the summer of 2018, I successfully defended. And so there's a picture of me, my two co-supervisors, Dr. Terry Krupa, and evidently Dr. Krupa taught me when I was a 19-year-old undergrad, and Dr. Heidi Cram. So this was particularly special to me because I was Dr. Krupa's last PhD student before she retired, and I was Dr. Cram's first. And I'm so grateful to have had this opportunity to be supervised by the both of them. And I continue to have a lot of work that I do with Dr. Cram to this day. And this is down below is a view from Grant Hall on the day of my convocation, and it was the best seat in the house. So immediately after my PhD, I was fortunate enough to land a postdoctoral research fellowship with Dr. Heather Stewart. So Dr. Stewart is an internationally renowned researcher and is the Bell Canada Mental Health and Anti-Stigma Research Chair. During my time with her and her team, I helped develop a mental health app to be used to support mental health and well-being of Canada's military and veteran community. Also during that time, I had opportunities to develop my skills as an educator teaching at Queen's and the Royal Military College. Then in 2019, I landed my first tenure track interview. So as you can see, the interview didn't work out as planned for me. So I had a really big pity party and invited lots of people to join. And that pity party lasted on and off for a few months. I eventually realized that the pity party was no way constructive to the bigger picture. And then I got down to figuring out next steps. How to network was a skill that I had to learn quickly during my PhD. So I'd always seen my mother do this as I was growing up. My mother is very much a people person and would make friends everywhere she went. So I used to, and I continue to sort of roll my eyes whenever I'd see her approaching people, but have learned to appreciate the circle of support that she's built for herself. And this circle of support and networking is a skill that I had to really to learn. Something that I really had to learn over the years. I'm naturally an introvert, so meeting new people and speaking at conferences has always been very anxiety provoking for me. So after realizing that a really great pity party was not going to lead me to a fulfilling professional career, I decided to actively engage my network of support that I was slowly growing around me. During the fall of 2019, I was at an informal lunch time get together at the grad club on Queen's campus that was organized by Dr. Alan English, who is a military historian at Queen's. So I've known Dr. English for a number of years and learned from him the importance of connecting with others within and outside of your field. So during pre-pandemic times, Dr. English would organize these weekly lunch get-togethers after his graduate seminar. So I would happily make the trip down to Kingston to meet up with him and some of the colleagues who I had the pleasure of meeting over the years. It was at this particular lunch during the fall of 2019 that I met Dr. Stephanie von Lackey. So Dr. von Lackey is a highly respected associate professor of political science at Queen's, and actually had been someone that I'd been following on Twitter for quite some time. And she had become one of the folks in my network who I tapped into last winter, so the winter of 2020, when I was trying to figure out directions for my professional next steps. Stephanie had introduced me to the Canadian Defence and Security Network and told me about a postdoctoral funding opportunity for the upcoming year. So taking a leap of faith, knowing full well that I was entering the area of defense, peace, and security, something I felt like I knew nothing about, I applied for the scholarship with a proposal on developing a gender-informed, culturally competent mentorship program for women in the Canadian Armed Forces. And much to my surprise, I was awarded the funding and began my unexpected journey into the area of military personnel. Now, this was all happening in the middle of the pandemic, and like for many, had been quite disruptive for me and my family. So my kids were now attending virtual school and doing virtual music lessons. I was baking as though I was opening up a bakery, and suddenly decided that I was a plant person. But one of the best things I did during the pandemic so far was, as a way to manage all the changes and the stressors, was contribute to an article to the Women Aspire Together magazine, which I wrote about during about my pandemic experience. I want to spend a few minutes talking about some of the research that I'm currently doing, as I feel that it has really taught me a lot about growth and resilience and has helped me develop as a researcher as well as a person. So what has been really great about working in this area is that I've been able to bring together my knowledge and experience and interests in culture, gender experiences of women, and military personnel health and well-being. So as I mentioned earlier, the research question is as follows. What can a gender-informed, culturally competent mentorship program aimed at supporting women in the CAF look like? And this is knowing full well that there are already formal as well as informal mentorship partnerships that are already occurring in the CAF. So one of the first questions I asked during my interviews was finding out how people got themselves connected into mentorship. And for many of them, they shared they got into mentoring in the CAF because they themselves had positive experiences as mentees. So this participant shared about her personal journey of surviving sexual misconduct early in her career as a cadet, has since used this experience to share with other women. So early career women who have lived through similar experiences have found it helpful to seek support from another woman who's survived a similar ordeal. So peer-to-peer support in the mental health and sexual assault survivor and advocacy realm in the civilian world has proven to be beneficial to recovery in many ways. So what is unique about this type of mentoring relationship is that it's grounded in an underlying history of surviving sexual misconduct within a specific cultural context, and that being the military. So this is one of many quotes describing some of the participants' positive experiences with mentorship. So there are three things that really stand out in this quote that I want to draw your attention to. The first point being that it highlights the importance of visibility. So for women to see other women within the organization who are high achieving, that they can look up to and aspire to be. And this is based a lot on the shared experiences of being a woman in the military. The second point I want to highlight is the importance of validation. So having other women who have had similar experiences as you, whether good or bad, creates an arena that validates your experience as a woman in the military. And finally, it creates a support structure or support network for women in the CAF who are often overlooked or pushed aside. So going along my previous slide about creating a support structure is the benefit of amplifying the voices of women. So particularly the voices of women who are early in their careers and coming through. So what I'm hearing is that mentorship provides a mechanism that women are using to express their intolerance for things such as sexual misconduct, and has become a way to push culture change. So the support structure is providing women with confidence and the ability to speak up in a way that was unavailable for those women who came before them. One of the things I also wanted to do was to begin to explore how culture, so military culture and Canadian social culture, how this may influence the experience of mentoring for women in the CAF. Another surprising finding from the interviews is this idea of cumulative or compounding effects of culture. So this quote reads, I think women want to talk about how to be seen as a credible leader in a system where there are often few of them at the table. We talk a lot about being confident in a situation where you might be the only woman or because of being a logistics officer. We're also a support trade, so we have a couple of strikes against you. You're a woman, you're a supporter, so how do you find credibility in the system? So even within each branch of the CAF, specific roles lie in a hierarchy with professions that are predominantly held by women situated near the bottom. So as a result, this becomes a double strike for women. So both socially ascribed gender culture and military culture seem to have a compounding effect. So what we found is that mentorship can provide a support structure, as I previously shared, as a way to empower women to challenge the question of their worth and credibility in the military. So during the midst of compiling the results for the mentorship study, there was news that broke that has continued to be in the news today, and that there are reports of sexual misconduct in the highest ranks of the Canadian Armed Forces. So these claims are not a surprise for people who are aware of the history of military sexual trauma in the Canadian Armed Forces, and this has come out in many of the interviews that I conducted in mentorship studies and other studies that I've been involved with in the past. So I've had the privilege to contribute to the public discourse of military sexual misconduct on various national media platforms. There was an opportunity presented to me to speak to the media, and one that I took and ran with. So I want to share that I have no media training, and I experience more anxiety doing this sort of thing than doing any presentation at a conference. But there has been some unintentional benefits for my personal journey because of doing this. I personally share many of the same experiences described by the women who have come forward about with allegations and stories of sexual misconduct, including not being believed and having negative impacts on their careers. Because I didn't allow myself time to process the sudden traumatic loss of my last job and everything that happened, by throwing myself immediately into my PhD, by being able to engage in the conversation about sexual misconduct in the CAF, I've been able to find a way to call out toxic masculinity, abuse of power, and dysfunctional work cultures. So as completely nerve-wracking the TV and radio interviews have been for me, I continue to push forward. I put myself out there to try new things that are outside of my comfort zone. My personal experience of growth and resilience has been to continually take risks and to try things. Taking risks have also ended in failure, which has seen me in tears more than I would like to admit. But I like to think that I've found a way to grow and become more resilient as my career moves forward. I don't have a clear roadmap of what the next 20 years are going to look like for me professionally, but I'm certainly not as worried as I was 7 years ago. So I'd like to acknowledge the support of the team that helped with the study, and to the members of the Canadian Armed Forces who contributed to my work. And that's it. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your talk. And on behalf of everyone listening and the entire Rehabilitation Colloquium Committee, thank you very much for sharing your experiences with resilience and inspiring us to keep going during this strange time of a pandemic and our research. I'd now like to open the floor to some questions from the audience, and you can either type them in the chat or there should be a Q&A box. If none of that appears for you, let me know.
Thank you for your kind words. Thank you. You can feel free to reach out to me after, if you'd like.
Actually, Linna, are you able to put your email in the chat?
Yeah, I can.
Just so if anyone is shy at the moment and doesn't want to speak up now, they can contact you directly afterwards. No one has a question, I do. So you've spoken a lot about your journey and how things were difficult at certain points and you were able to push through them through a multitude of techniques and strategies. This is a student conference. Most of us here are master's students and PhDs with a few undergrads in the mix. What advice can you give us during this pandemic and just in general as students of what we can do to move forward and help us through this?
My big piece is my big piece of advice to anyone is to ask. Don't be afraid to ask for help. No one is going to judge you for asking for help. So, you know, you want to be strong, you want to sort of prove that you're tough, which is great. But I think that admitting that you need help and reaching out for help is the best way to show, you know, your toughness. So you knowing your limitations, asking for help. And, you know, I always try to, I received a lot of support during my journey. And in turn, I try to sort of look at those sort of coming up behind me and provide sort of the same support and offer, you know, kindness and support as much as I can myself. Because I think that this doing a PhD or a master's is quite frankly, quite lonely, and even more so during a pandemic. And as a result, you know, you need as much support and folks around you who can build you up. And I think that's a big piece that can turn people away from doing work like this.
Thank you. That's a great answer. And I know I can't speak for everyone else, but I will definitely take that to heart. I know that as
Yes.
difficult as that is, it's definitely required. So thank you for that. Okay, we
I
have
see Katie. Hi, Katie. Thank you for doing the work that you're doing, Katie. Katie is a nurse who's been working in the ICU. And so thank you to all the frontline workers for doing this for us. So I want to thank Katie. What the most challenging part of your PhD journey was? What? I mean, it was all, quite honestly, it was all tough. My children were really young at the time, and not to use them as sort of a reason, because everyone has, you know, things in their lives that make it difficult. But being okay with rejection, and I think that that was a hard lesson to learn, like not getting, you know, a grant application, not getting a scholarship, not getting your papers accepted, not getting the job. Like that has been an ongoing thing that I've learned, and it's okay. It's okay, right? Because had certain things happened, had I not been fired from my job, I wouldn't have been in touch with Heidi to do my PhD. Had I, you know, not been given an amazing opportunity to interview for a tenure track position, but not gotten it, I wouldn't be where I am today. So, you know, life presents opportunities. Sometimes it really sucks when things don't work out, but you gotta wallow in it. You gotta throw yourself a pity party. You're allowed, as something that Heidi has taught me, is that you're allowed to cry and be miserable and pout and swear. But then, you know, at some point you gotta poke your head up from, you know, underneath your covers, you know, garner your support, get those people who have been by you the whole time, and then just move forward. Hi, Heidi. Thank you. Thanks. Thank you. See, having people that support you, sort of rallying behind you, all the way, I think has made this journey a lot easier. Yeah. So I've been very fortunate to have really great support, and having like the School of Rehab take risks and offering the opportunities to teach has been really beneficial. You know, and I've learned a lot, and I actually was given the opportunity by the School of Rehab to create the mentoring and coaching program in the doctoral program, in rehabilitation and health leadership. And it was because of that and that opportunity for me to really delve into learning about the research behind mentorship that really sparked my my interest in the area. And if it wasn't for that opportunity, I wouldn't be working on developing a mentorship program for the Canadian Armed Forces. So thank you. I don't think there are any other questions. Thank you, everyone. Good luck. You can all do this. Rally your network of supports. Feel free to reach out because I can tell you how much it does suck, but at the end of the day, it does get better.
Thank you, Linna, for that. And I'm speaking on behalf of everyone here when I say that was an incredible presentation. Thank you so much. And I know I personally will be reaching out to you for.
Please do. Please do. We've talked about this. Please do. Anyone. You don't have to be, doing research in this area.
So to everyone else, right now, I'm just going to kind of say one big thank you once again to Linna Tam-Seto. Feel free to do your little applause if you can. Although I think on webinar, I have disabled that feature for you. My apologies. Now I'd like to say, please everyone go take a body break, grab a coffee, do whatever you need to do, and we'll begin our next session at 9:45. Thank you so much. The link stays the same, so feel free to just get up, walk away, do your thing, and come right back here. We'll see you shortly. Have a good one. Bye, everyone.